then I got this idea in my mind that I was walking around the streets, not that I was like in any sort of dangerous neighborhoods, but I was just walking around living my life with no knowledge on how to protect or defend myself. And that's sort of that idea, that seed started to grow in my mind, and it started to trouble me. And a few years later from then, I just moved very close to a jiu-jitsu gym for work. I would run past it every other day, like have a look in the window, see what they're doing. They're running in circles, they're doing, crazy stuff. And, like a lot of other young men, I listened to the Joe Rogan Experience and the Jocko Willink podcast. And, that idea was reinforced. And I decided just to walk in one day and never look back.
Because it's always the same, isn't it? You hear from everybody, oh, you don't know me, man. You don't know my mentality. It's like I see red. I can win every fight I'm in. I can get every girl, and you're like,
yeah.
And then they go and get thrown around by a 115-pound girl purple belt or a white belt. Yeah. How? Because that's the thing, is a lot of people approach it thinking, yeah, I've got this, but tiny bit of technique, tiny bit of timing, control and stuff, people get thrown around. I mean, I'm the wrong side. I'm just turned 40. Probably my diet is atrocious. Want to get back to it. My blue belt. Kind of lost my way a bit and need to go back into training. So I think it's perfect because a lot of people are wanting to go into it, but not understanding how to approach it. Without going into sort of like strength conditioning, stuff like that, how would you advise people to actually just understand jiu-jitsu, to approach it without thinking, I'm going to win every role, and actually go in and be a good student?
Yeah. So I think the conversation would be different for someone that hasn't trained before versus someone in like, our position where you have a couple years under your belt already, or even, just 6 months of training under your belt. So if we segregate it to being like, my advice to people that haven't started training jiu-jitsu is the cliche, just start and then, we come back and listen to the second part of this later. But for people who have already started training, my approach for training jiu-jitsu is obviously getting as much time on the mats as you can. But when you're on the mats, be intentional about it. And a lot of people talk about this. And even you mentioned at the start, Jordan teaches jiu-jitsu. He mentions this concept a lot in terms of being intentional with your training. Have some sort of goal around each session. It doesn't need to, you don't need to climb Mount Everest every session. You don't need to tap your training partners 10 times a piece every session, but have something that you're aiming toward. And I think that being focused and being intentional will really help to maximize your time on the mats. And the second piece of that is obviously what I sort of touched on in the beginning, is to get your mat time maximized, as in more time on the mats is obviously going to improve. But there's also a limit to that. And I'm sure we're going to talk about, managing recovery versus, managing time on the mats and strength and conditioning and everything else. So I'm not saying everyone should be training 2 times a day, but yeah, just whatever time you have available, be intentional behind your training. And I think that will go a long way for most people.
That's a great answer, because that's the thing. People go in and they just like, it's like a deer in the headlights, because people are flying, flipping and rolling. And you're like, what the hell is going on?